Trudie Mason sitting in for Elias this week. We are turning our attention to Canada on the world stage, fresh off the NATO summit in Washington last week. Big anniversary celebration for the military alliance. And there was Canada, who has been the subject of some side-eye over the years over our defense spending because we have been dragging our feet on meeting what NATO considers the minimum commitment, 2% of gross domestic product. So we went into that NATO summit with a promise that indeed we will be ramping up NATO-eligible military spending, and we will meet 2%, but it's going to take us a few years. 2032 is how long NATO will have to wait for us to meet that commitment. What does this mean for Canada on the world scene? What does it mean for the Prime Minister and the Liberals here at home? How should Canada be positioning ourselves? We welcome to CJ 8800 a familiar voice, a writer, commentator, all-round media person. You see her in the National Post, GZero Media, Substack, Tasha Kheiriddin. Thanks for joining us on the Elias Macko Show.
Oh, thanks, Trudie. Great to be here.
So, did Canada pull it off? Did the Prime Minister stand up in front of NATO and deliver a winner, or was it a damp squib last week?
Well, I vote for squib. The commitment was made, but he did also say that these things shouldn't be subject to crass mathematical calculations. If you're going to do something, do it. Apologize for the failure to not do it yet and move on. Don't try and wheedle out. The big challenge, and economists have been weighing in since the pledge you discussed was made, is how we're going to do it. Because even by 2032, this government has spent so much money on additional programs that will be running for years, things like pharmacare, things like dental care, all these promises that it weren't even promises it made. In some cases, it was the NDP that they needed to keep in power. So they've spent Canada, into the red. And now we are facing this situation where we're going to have to spend more on defense. There's no two ways about it. So how are they going to do that? That's the big challenge now for the government. And 2032 is a bit late, better late than never, but at least we have some kind of a commitment to do this.
What's your reading, though, on whether there's public appetite for the added burden of the defense spending, meeting that commitment? Do Canadians understand why NATO is important?
There isn't actually a huge public appetite, and that's part of the problem. There's a public appetite with certain segments of the electorate. Yeah, if you look at polling, Conservative voters are much more bullish on spending on defense than NDP voters, who are not at all, and Liberal voters as well, who are kind of in the middle. So you end up with a situation where politically it's not in your interest to spend more on the military if you are a Liberal or an NDP politician. And that's part of the reason this has happened. I mean, Conservative governments also have neglected defense spending over the years. This problem is not new. It dates back decades. But the reality is that it's not a political winner because Canadians have become complacent. We have no experience with direct war on our soil apart from, against the Americans in 1812. So they shelter us. We know this. We have this illusion the world is a safe place. It's not now. And I think that bubble will burst as conflicts continue to ramp up. Canadians will realize this is a necessary expenditure. I do think that attitude will change.
We've heard the Liberal government say before, Canada punches above its weight in certain other ways, even though our spending may not be meeting that 2% yardstick, the 2% threshold, we give in other ways. Is that actually true in your assessment?
I don't think you can equate the two. And, if Canada can step up in situations of disaster, Canada can step up in other places which are non-conflict situations, it doesn't change the fact that the reason NATO has this 2% threshold is for deterrence against a military attack. This is the issue people have to understand. This is like an insurance policy in a way. If your guns are bigger than the other guys, or you have just as many missiles, they are less likely to launch an attack on you. That's why governments have weapon systems and militaries. That's why they maintain them. It is not because they want to go and use them. It is as a deterrent. In Canada's case, it's very true because, as we are a small nation relative to other powers, especially the U.S. sitting right next to us, we would contribute. But the point is, if countries don't do their part, the deterrence element fails. And that's when states like Russia, China, and Iran look and say, vulnerability, let's exploit it.
Do you think NATO might become so frustrated with Canada and the slow pace of its commitment that this might break out into the open criticism, not the kind of veiled stuff, not the kind of indirect stuff, but an out and out pay up or get out?
I don't know if it would reach that level. I mean, it wasn't veiled. NATO leaders individually took Trudeau to the woodshed before the summit and during. So he heard the earful. Would they kick Canada out? I don't think that would be the case. I think the greatest fear right now is for NATO as an organization, partly because, and I hate to discuss this right now considering what happened over the weekend, but, Donald Trump is not bullish on NATO. He has said that, the Russians can do whatever he wants. If people who don't pay up, in his view, like Canada, well, too bad, so sad, right? So there's a real concern about NATO's viability if he becomes president and if that is the attitude he continues to have. So I think that, we have to be realistic and say we've got to do our part. We have to do our part to make sure that we are still part of this organization because maybe things would change under a different American president if that came to pass.
Tasha Kheiriddin, thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Tasha Kheiriddin is a writer, a commentator. You read her in the National Post. You see her at GZero Media and on Substack.